Hello, everybody. Thank you for being here on a beautiful Saturday afternoon. I wanted to start things off by first thanking Five Star Guitars. They have been able to bring several of these episodes together, and this wonderful company in Beaverton on the 6th is going to start allowing customers to come inside and sign up for lessons, get new equipment. They've got the best customer service around. Five Star Guitars in Beaverton is also doing repairs, and you can purchase through their website at www.fivestarguitars.com. I also wanted to mention that a event that we have coming up on June 13th, Abducted by the 80s, is producing a concert that is a direct relief benefit for the COVID-19 frontline workers. So EMTs, nurses, doctors, everybody that's been part of this fight for the coronavirus is being supported in the Back to the Basement concert, which will feature artists like A Flock of Seagulls and New Shoes and Wang Chung and um, several bands, the Escape Club and Real Life. If you go to www.abductedbythe80s.com, you can sign up for contests and they'll have some merchandise available, I think, by the end of the afternoon. So June 13th, watch for a live broadcast. Again, www.abductedbythe80s.com. Now, I would love for everybody out there to take a deep breath with me. This is important. This friend of mine that's on this conversation is somebody that that has changed my life the last few years that she's come into it. Every time that I've gotten together with her, I have felt more grounded, centered, and inspired. She is somebody that came to me under the other hat that I wear as a web designer, but we found that we have many commonalities. She's got roots in Montana. She is a warm and inspired musician, but she has something that I haven't. She's got this unique ability to remain zen and centered in a crazy and chaotic world. So whenever I meet with her and whenever we get together, no matter where it is, whether we're in a quiet room or in a chaotic nightclub, I always feel like I come away calm and collected. And so this afternoon on Saturday, my hope is that you get to share that same experience with me. So I do want you to meet my dear friend. This is Kathryn Richer. Thank you.
I'm a star.
Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
We've got a lot of ground to cover. I really want you to know how much I appreciate you being here right now. They're a dear friend of both of ours. So, you know, you got to meet Merrill Hale through a connection with me. I was with him today, and when he knew that I was leaving to come and talk to you, he got a little jealous. So he says hello, and I think everybody that you've impacted around in my circles has all been much better because of that experience. So I'm wondering where this comes from. Where do you get this energy to present people with just a calm feeling?
It's really not a get. I would say it's more of it's a tapping into. It's a being tuned into and turned into and tapped into, turned on. It just is. It's life is, energy is, and it's a matter of being tuned into that, and as well as this moment.
Have you always had
The
this?
very moment that we're in right here and right now. And so it's a very present awareness and a presence that is about that awareness with you.
It's strange to share this, isn't it, with a big group of whomever's watching, right? Yeah, because it's always, you know, a very connected thing. Even if we're in a room with a bunch of people, I always feel heard and felt when I talk to you. And I'm just wondering, you know, if it's not a get, but it's something that you have this ability to resonate with people. I can't think of a better word, but that really does seem like a right description. is this something that's evolved with you over time and training? It's, you don't go to school and get the degree in connectivity and all of a sudden have some sort of, a bond with people's spirit. But um, I will say I was in Thailand in February, and I hired a former monk to take me through these temples and talk to new students, these students that were actually in temples working on their studies of Zen Buddhism. And I saw this monk had that same type of energy.
Mm.
So I'm wondering if maybe there was something in a spiritual sense that you developed, to sort of have this, or is this something that it's always been in you?
That's a good question, Kev. I remember being at one of my high school reunions, and one of the gals coming up to me that I'd been from first grade all the way through graduation, and she said to me, "You still have that. I mean, you were always that way. How did that happen?" And so when you ask me that, it's interesting to think about. I spent a lot of time, a lot of really formative years, 21 summers of my life at Flathead Lake
Mm,
Episcopal Church Camp. There's
okay.
our Montana roots coming through, right?
Yeah.
And I was in a very large community, and it was spiritually focused, Episcopalian, of course, which is on the leading edge of progressive in those traditions. But there was a lot of connecting there.
Okay.
And I also was a camp counselor. I lived in the cabin with all the campers for I don't know how many summers. And so there was a lot of also very intimate one-on-one conversations and time. And camp was a place where myself as well and kids could just shed who they were at home and with their parents and all of that and just be themselves. And they often had very cathartic moments as well, very profound moments. And it was an honor and a joy to be with them through those. I have had counseling training. I have been a crisis counselor. I worked with runaway and homeless kids and their families if they had them. And then I'm spiritual practitioner training as well. So I have had a thread of that type of intimate work with people in the places of deep emotion and feeling and experience. And it's a place that I love to be.
Yeah.
Mhm.
You found some place that, as we get older, working through professions, my friend Jana Lopez, who has this podcast on identity, shifts as we get older, right? We may shed one identity for another as we evolve and make our way through life, whether it be through divorce or job losses, or a pandemic comes up and forces a career type change. And I think about this maybe being a position where people find exactly where they're supposed to be in life. And it sounds like through all of these experiences you had, you found your place. This is a purpose that really seems like you were meant to do this. I don't know that I don't, well, I just don't know that I could see you in any other career path. uh, but you do have so many other interests, right? So let's talk a little bit about your musical roots. And was that something that maybe music was so, because you just found an album cover or some post or some,
I did.
yeah, you have it here. Good. All
I
right.
have it.
Look at this. Oh my gosh. Look at that.
Napoleon's Mistress, 1987.
Wow. Look at that. Where did you
And
find this?
I found it behind my collection of CDs. It's not even been opened, Kevin.
Oh my
And it's
gosh.
all
Wait, go back up again, because you
I
had a
have
picture of you in the
this
back.
much.
Let's see your picture back there again. Let's see
Oh,
this. There
there we
it
go.
is. Oh, look at that. Yeah, that's the Rockstar belt right there.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. You can get that at Claire's Boutique at the mall. Yeah.
Gosh, I don't remember back then. But I learned classical piano from my father.
Okay.
And then I did all the, band and high school stuff and jazz band. Uh, and I played in a country rock band. And then when I went to college at Bozeman, I know you spent time in Bozeman as well.
That's where I'm from.
Exactly. I played the carillons on campus there for a
Oh, wow.
scholarship,
Yeah.
but I'd go in there and I'd play Supertramp and Kansas and
Oh,
James Taylor. And I always wondered if anybody could hear that wafting across the college campus.
oh,
It was so
yeah.
fun. And then I actually spent about 6 months in New York City. One of my high school buddies managed Electric Lady recording studios in Greenwich Village. I'm like,
Wow.
I'm going to be a female rock star keyboard player because there's not enough women in the rock business. And well, I didn't make it there, but when I got back home, that's when I ended up moving to Portland.
Really?
And yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
So you had this goal though, you went out to New York and you're like, all right, this is the next step for Kathryn Richer. I'm going to go out there and be a female rock keyboardist. Did you want to be in a band, or were you wanting to be the hired gun, or you wanting to write your own music and be a solo artist? Or?
I wanted to be in a band.
Okay.
Yeah. And
What,
that's all I knew.
what, did you have a band in your eye, like in your mind? Was there a band that inspired you that if this band had needed a keyboardist and they called you, who would that have been?
Gosh, I really didn't. I was completely open.
Yeah.
And it was funny because at the time, Phil Collins was recording at the studio, and Daryl Hall and John Oates. And the closest I got was one of the roadies for Daryl Hall and John Oates took me out and bought me a pair of white leather moccasins.
Oh,
I
yeah.
met the roadies. I met Keith Richards kind of accidentally at a concert. We went to a Tina Turner concert, and Mary took me in the VIP rooms and everything. But he ran into me when he came in the door and dropped his coat on the floor. And it's very apologetic, but that's as close as I got. And that's okay. That's okay. I was also pursued a little bit for a modeling career, and my initial encounters felt really kind of creepy.
This
And
is when
so
you were in New York?
when I was in New York, I had some test shots done for modeling, and I just decided there was something in me that just knew it was not right for me, either the place or the time. I don't know
Yeah.
which it was. And so I left New York, and that's when I came home and was like, nah, what do I want to do with my life? I'll go back to my piano performance studies in college. And my dad's like, are you sure you want to, this is how my dad talks. Are you sure you want to move back to Montana after living in New York City? And what do you really want to do? And I said, I really want to travel. And I did. And so that summer at camp, I saw an advertisement for a business college in Portland, Oregon.
Okay.
And I had driven down the coast all the way from Montana to Seattle, all the way down the coast, California, with my best friend when I was 18. And I remember to this day driving through Port Orford area
Oh, wow.
seeing all the Oregon coast. And I remember saying, I could live here.
Yeah.
When I saw that poster,
Yeah.
I was like, I'm in.
Yeah.
I interviewed, I packed up all my stuff, packed up a U-Haul, hooked up my car, and I drove out here and moved here by myself, got a little studio apartment right across from what became the Performing Arts Center.
You didn't know anybody here or any contacts at
And,
all? Okay.
no,
Wow.
no.
That, you know, something that you just brought up and I kind of wanted to talk about is intuition,
Yes.
that you said that
Yeah.
you're in New York and this modeling career, somebody came to you and, I think about the notorious stories about, managers, because it's the same thing with music, right? They're all the same kind of industry, that they see a naive, unassuming person and they think, oh, I can take advantage of this person. And so, and at that age, right, when your stars are in your eyes and you're thinking about, the glory, sometimes the naivete where it wins out, and you get taken advantage of. So you always have a good gut feeling. Is that something that you've been blessed with?
I have been blessed with. I would
Okay.
say that the devotion is not just listening to it, but following it.
Right. Yeah.
It's easy to listen to once you get used to it, and you get used to where you feel it in your body, and then will you actually pay attention to it and act on what it's telling you?
Sure. Oh, that's great. Yeah. I wish I had had that at 18. I really do. But, or 38, either way, 48. Yeah. All right. So Portland, you moved here. You had no contacts. You just had a trailer and a bunch of stuff. Started going to school.
I did. Yes.
Okay.
I immediately found my first yoga teacher.
Okay.
I found a spiritual community here. I went to business college. And and I knew I wanted to play music still, right? Always was a thread through my life.
Sure.
Always, always, always. And a friend of mine mentioned a band in town, and it was Napoleon's Mistress with Robert and Gina Noel. And they used to hang out at
Wait.
Virginia City Cafe.
Okay. I didn't realize that Gina was in that band. Are
Oh,
you
yeah.
kidding me?
Oh,
Oh,
yeah.
wow. Okay. All right. All
Yep.
right. So more connections. So Gina Noel, nice to see you. Like if you're here. Okay. This is crazy. All right. So you went down to Virginia Cafe, which was a great hang.
It was. And
Mhm.
there was, I don't remember what night, but it was all the musicians in town would hang out there.
Yeah.
And that's where I met Robert and Gina. And
Okay.
they were looking for a keyboard player. So I auditioned. There I was with Napoleon's Mistress. It was so much fun. And we played all the clubs that were, Key Largo. We
Yeah.
played Satyricon. In fact, our album was up on the ceiling. They had the wall of posters, and we were up there. And The Last Hurrah, the underground club, right?
Right.
And then our really shining moment, and another one of our connections, Kev, is that we opened for A Flock of Seagulls at the Starry Night Theater.
Oh my gosh. Which is now the Roseland, right? So,
Yes,
oh my
exactly.
goodness. What year was
Yeah.
that?
What year might have been 87 or
Okay.
88? Yeah.
Okay.
And here you are, the drummer for Flock of Seagulls, and have been for how many years?
Just about 5 now. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I actually opened for A Flock of Seagulls in '89 as well
What?
in up at Big Sky. Yeah, but Whiskey Jacks
Of
on
course.
my cover band opened for them, and yeah, I had no idea that 30 years later I'd be in the band. So,
How
but
fun.
wow, okay, so Starry Night, you guys opened for Flock, and so the '87, boy, Portland was popping with music. I know
So
Eli's was happening then, I think too, right? Or was yeah. And I hadn't moved here yet, but I had heard about the scene at that time. Crazy
yeah,
Eights were big.
crazy.
Dan Reed Network was happening big, and yeah.
Elf Rider.
Oh yeah, right.
Uh-huh.
Oh my gosh. Okay, Rex and the Rockets, was that happening too? It was
That one doesn't ring a bell.
okay. All right, that's okay.
Yeah.
So,
Uh,
but things are taking off of the band. You guys are doing well,
yeah.
and then you mentioned
Marvin Rindy, Harden My
oh
Heart.
yeah, Marvin Randy Ross. You bet, Quarter Flash.
Yep.
But yeah, they were Quarter Flash by that point. They'd passed the
Yes.
Seafood Mama era. All you '80s fans out there, you know these bands. But it's too bad that Marvin and Randy aren't doing the Quarter Flash thing the way that like Valerie Day is doing with the new shoes. And it's nice to see the resurgence in a lot of these bands. Quarter
Mhm.
Flash was amazing. That was a great band.
Yes,
But
indeed. Sometimes they do the park concerts. You can still
eh,
catch them there.
yeah, just the former the other members from those days are all doing great things as well, and so it's nice to see people still working, but it's also nice to hear the band name now and then. So
Yeah.
all right, so was that like more of a side gig for you because you were going to school and you were working? So were you thinking Napoleon's Mistress, this is my ticket, this is the next thing?
I was just doing it.
All right.
It's
Yeah, just
kind of how I roll. It's be led to what it is, be there, keep my eyes open, keep my hearts open. My hearts, I have more than one. Oh.
yeah,
And roll with it. Follow
yeah.
the intuition, see what happens. And what happened was the band broke up.
Big
Uh,
surprise. Happens every time.
oh my gosh! And it was right after the release of the album,
Oh,
and Robert had written some of his best songs, I thought, actually, for that band.
mm,
Anyway, so he decided to. I remember him calling it "Divorce the Band," and so people went their separate ways. And gosh, what did I do then? Maybe that's around the time. No, it was a little bit later. Well, my next venture into professional performance was with the Oregon Renaissance Band. So total change
okay.
from underground rock to playing early music. No amplification, period instruments, playing tenor and soprano recorder, peasant's bagpipe,
Wow.
little spinatino, which is like a miniature harpsichord, uh, percussion. Used to do little vocals with them, but I am still with them.
Wow. Okay. This is so good that you still got that angle. Like,
Hmm?
you have to let me know because I didn't know about these performances.
Are you
It's,
kidding?
yeah.
Okay.
Well,
Well, I will invite you to, I'll get you a free pass for the winter show.
oh, I don't mind paying. I would like to pay. I want to support. So uh, all right. So that's still happening for you, and I would
Mhm.
bet that having that creative outlet is probably pretty helpful right now. All of us musicians are kind of going through a little bit of an interesting phase that when the world shuts down in quarantine, the creative side has to come out a different way, right? That's it. I
Yes.
mean, you would hope that there's a rebirth in some respect. A lot of musicians are doing online performances
Yes.
and writing a lot, but you've got some things on the calendar that you can still do. But because you also, you mentioned yoga that you discovered right when you moved here as well. Was it something you practiced most of your life, or was this a new discovery when you moved here?
Brand new, actually.
Okay, wow. I, you know, I really think that that's got to be a part of that sort of practice and sort of remaining present. It does seem like something that, is helpful. It's been really difficult for me to do. Just like meditation, it's just my mind won't slow down.
Mm.
But it just takes practice, I know. But are you able to right now in sort of this quarantine pandemic time, are you practicing your yoga? Are you working on meditation and that kind of thing?
Absolutely. It's the first thing I do right out of
Really?
bed
Yeah. So
every
that's
day.
that's a ritual. Yeah. So okay. So tell me. I mean, if you follow some rituals to kind of maintain some of this grounding, what are those besides meditation?
Okay. First thing out of bed, when I put my feet on the ground, I give gratitude for waking up alive. It's
Hmm.
always a good thing to wake up alive.
Sure. You bet.
Gratitude for being alive.
Yeah.
And gratitude really opens doors for much in our lives, no matter where we are, no matter when, no matter how hard it is. Just a simple acknowledgement of that. And then and I really do come straight to the mat. And it's either whatever my body wants. It's either a workout, it's Pilates, it's yoga, it's whatever my body tells me it needs the most. Sometimes it needs a good stretch.
Yeah.
Sometimes it needs to sleep in, and that's okay. And I will also say that most days it is a daily practice of at least 30 minutes of physical exercise and meditation as well. And I would agree with you, Kev, around the yoga being such a contributor to presence, because how we are on the mat is often an indicator of how we are in life
Mm.
and vice versa. And so the more grounded we are, the more balanced we are. There's some really great balance poses, of course, in yoga. And they can be a good indicator for me if I'm falling out of a tree pose. Okay, ooh, I have a little bit of centering to do here. I have a little bit of focus. Really, it's
Okay.
about that focused awareness. And yoga is beautiful because you're combining your breath as well as it's the body work and the mind. And so if your mind starts to wander, it's more easy to notice because you can fall out of a pose or you can for it's a very present moment practice for sure.
Okay.
And then I mostly do a home practice. I've studied formally for quite a few years under teachers here in Portland.
Okay.
And then for the last number of years, I do mostly things online. I have a couple of favorite instructors online that I love. And same with workouts. I find workouts that I love online. I like working out in the privacy of my own home,
Sure.
kind of, uh, actually for the most part, because I do like to follow it with
Yeah.
meditation.
Okay.
There's a beautiful part of how body movement really helps actually settle into meditation.
I could see why that would be. And I really do see the metaphor, the connection between the balance, the workout, and how it compares to the rest of your life. You have any recommendations for some? Because you said that you have both instructors and workouts that you like to do.
Mhm.
Somebody like me who has had a difficult time slowing down your life, if I were getting into it, I would imagine the first thing that happens is that people try something out for a little bit. They might try to expect more than they should at the beginning and then just fall out of practice. So, as somebody who's studied this for a while, do you recommend that you go into a group setting where you've got a little bit more of accountability, or do you think that some of the instructors you have could do one-on-ones and have some success as a brand new student?
I think it all depends on a person's preference for if they want to be in a big class. Many people are intimidated by being in class because they don't want to feel like they're going to be judged.
Sure.
Although theoretically, that's about the last thing that ought to be happening in a class.
Right.
You're free from judgment of yourself or others. So if you love being in a class and you find it inspiring, absolutely, absolutely find a class. If you would rather go solo, there's a lot of beautiful teachers online. There's a gal that does yoga called Boho Beautiful,
Hmm.
and you can search practices by however long you have, or if you want a meditation or a particular a more active flow, or if you want to focus on opening your hips, or if you want a restorative yoga, if you're just wiped out at the end of the day and you want some restorative yoga with breathing and a little bit of light stretching. And the beauty of those is you don't like it, you find something else.
Sure.
And you can turn off halfway through rather than being stuck in a class where you're realizing, oh my God, these people have been at it for 500 years and I can hardly touch my knees.
Yeah. You said it's
So,
Boho Beautiful?
Boho, Boho.
Yeah. Beautiful.
Yeah.
Okay.
She's lovely. I believe she was a Russian gymnast headed for the Olympics who injured her back.
Oh, wow.
And yoga is what actually saved her, I think is
Okay.
the word for it. But she travels all over the world and films in beautiful places. And it's very inspiring. And that's one that I really love a lot.
Okay.
Mhm.
Yeah. I love the recommendations. And I really feel that right now, you and I talked about this just before we hopped on the broadcast, that the people that I know typically that are sorry, my dog's going to get active here for a second. Sorry. Uh, we have somebody at the door. Um, I was talking about being present. It's hard for me to be present with my dog barking. So sorry.
All
Uh,
right.
um, the the people that I know that are typically centered and grounded right now are kind of coming apart at the seams because the world is a little bit upside down, and I would think that having somebody that has some of the experiences you have is really helpful. And one of the things I was excited about here was to maybe allow people to slow down a little bit, turn off the news, and just focus on this connectivity. You mentioned like these groups, these large groups being judgment-free zones. I love the idea of having a judgment-free zone day, right? Where no matter where we go, whether it be right in the confines of our house where several people are quarantined together, or potentially um, interacting if people are out and they're going to peaceful protest, and being able to slow down a little bit and letting go of some of the judgment, that I'm grateful that people are finding their voices right now, and I'm sad when it gets overshadowed by different messaging, but I think the centering is so important. I love the idea of yoga being part of that. I love traditions or rituals, daily ritual to be reminders to, because it takes practice. The gratitude thing is huge for me. It's the one tradition that I have that helps besides coffee, but uh, and how are you finding that those traditions and those rituals, how do they sort of form in a normal day for you? I know that days are not normal right now for anybody, or our schedules have been upside down, but how have those formed? Because you actually have sort of a traditional job during the day, are you still able to do that right now with the way that the pandemic has gone?
Actually, yes, Kev. I have been going to work every day into the office physically, although most of the rest of the building was released home quite a
Okay.
while ago. So this really started to, for folks that don't know, my day work for the last 15 years now has been coordinating healthcare system emergency response. and it's for a 6-county area. So it's for the entire metropolitan Portland area, as well as Clatsop and Tillamook counties out at the coast. We have about half the state's population and half the state's hospital beds as well. So I bring together all of our hospital and health system partners, EMS, emergency management, public health, safety net clinic representatives, all of these folks. And we've been doing planning for years together, and relationship building for years and years and years. So when this hit, I knew, I had that intuition. I was all ready to go to California again. I was going to go to Santa Monica. I've been planting some seeds down there for my practitioner work. And I just knew, I knew I needed to be here. This was the very, very beginning of March. I was watching it in February.
Right.
And I was in a bit of denial, and I was watching.
When you say denial, were you?
I didn't want it to come here.
Right. You felt
I didn't think it was going to come to the States. I was, no.
I'm guilty.
I was
well.
watching.
Yeah.
And then when I realized it was happening, I realized I needed to be here.
Okay.
So I have actually been going into the office in person up until about the last 2 weeks.
Wow.
And yeah, and it's been the most intense 2 months of this career in response since I've been in it for a long time. And so it's interesting that you asked about how all of this informs that day to day.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how I could have done it without it, honestly. It's a way to begin the day for sure. And it's also a way to have an awareness if I'm slipping away, if I'm getting caught, if I'm getting, like Michael Beck, with one of my favorite teachers, talks at stagnation, getting snagged into all of the stories and the information and this and I was in it 10, 12 hours a day.
Right.
For 2 solid months, and most, half of the weekends. And so to balance that with the higher perspective, what is the higher perspective here? What is the truth here? What is that place that I know? Where is that place that I know exists that doesn't ever move or change and is not ever impacted by illness or death or strife or violence or anything like that? That's the place in meditation. That's that place of, it's almost going neutral. I actually put signs up in the ladies' room for a couple of weeks because I talk about this sometimes with a few folks at work. I put up stickers on the bathroom mirror when people are washing their hands.
Yeah.
Something that I picked up was, every time you wash your hands, you just wash your hands of everything except for now. Just wash your hands. Just be here. Just be here.
You were telling people this at work.
Yeah.
You were just sharing that.
Kind of like by mirror stick.
Right. Yeah. But I mean, maybe giving them perspective, right? I mean, it really is important to be able, because not everybody has the same rituals that you have to start their day, right? So they haven't had some of this preparatory balancing and centering to get them into the office where they can actually be sort of level-headed. I would imagine it's had to have been chaotic and scary and
very, for everybody.
Sure. Yeah.
And I have so much compassion for everybody working that. And so also and if you can't, it's great to say, find a good feeling and just say an affirmation, and sometimes you just can't.
Yeah.
And that's okay. And
right.
if you're in a place that you can't, what you can do is you just go neutral. Just go neutral.
Yeah, that's...
Just wash your hands. Just close your eyes. Just close your outer eye. Just take a breath.
Yeah.
So I did a lot of that. I also did a lot of I call them olas, Outloud Affirmations.
Okay.
Before big meetings that I would convene, that we had to make really critical decisions in short amounts of time, and I facilitated the meetings. And I would do those affirmations before those meetings. I would take 2 minutes before them just to first go neutral and then the affirmations and then move on, right? You have to keep moving.
Yeah.
And so it had been a balance. I've really only had a couple of crashes. I crashed a couple times where I just was a puddle on the couch.
Wait, you're human?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Overwhelmed,
Yeah.
fatigued, compassion fatigue, work fatigue,
Yeah.
brain fatigue.
Yeah.
And I reached out for help and had that done for me, had that out loud affirmation done for me and with me. And so it's valuable. Any moment of the day, one can remember it in whatever way is a place that takes you beyond the intellect, right? And into either a feeling and emotion place that feels good and safe, or is just simply neutral. Neutral's all right too.
Yeah. That's healthy, right? I mean, there's an expectation to either be on or off. And I love being present with you and hearing this. I'm also seeing a bunch of friends of both of ours jumping on Facebook right now, making some comments. Some people that are really special to me too. Angela Olson, who I see weekly, she says, "Thank you for doing what you do.
Oh.
I'm with you. I didn't want it to come here. Thank you for being present and positive." JD Studenberg from Jimmy Max. He said he would see you. You're a regular there. I love him. He said he loved seeing you every time, and you're beautiful in every way. He misses you. Kelly, my friend Kelly Sweet Jensen in Houston, she says she loves Michael Beckwith. Wow, this is it's fun to see some people that are in different circles, my musical circles here and afar. That have these parallels, but. I remember you sort of coaching me to go neutral in the first times that we would get together, because it was so hard for me to slow down to just have a conversation together. Because by the time I would get to your place, I was going here and there, and I had stuff in my mind. And right now, I think one thing for me that's really helped me in the last year is to just completely disconnect from media in a big way. Social media is, it's a necessary evil in some respects. It can be really helpful with a lot of people, but I've seen it be a detriment to a lot of people in relationships, especially. Costs a lot of romantic relationships, I think, being too dependent on it. And I think it's nice to be able to channel some of the positive elements, here, where you and I can, if we can't sit face to face and see each other, being able to talk through the internet, through this bandwidth, and maybe share your heart with some people. It's a really special thing. I'm grateful that the people that you work with had this opportunity to have some Kathryn time too, because I would imagine that things would not have run so effectively had it not been for your perspective. So you said that you were there up until the last 2 weeks. So what's happened in the last 2 weeks to change things? Are you taking a break?
I've started working from home
Okay.
more often. That's partly because they're going to start opening up, and they really need the people that actually have to be there, like seeing patients in the clinic.
Okay.
Versus people that can work from home virtually, which I can work home virtually.
Sure.
So something that you just said around having people have more access to that part of Kathryn, and which is an interesting thing. And I also want to apologize. I'm not sure I actually got this live on my own Facebook page.
Oh, no problem.
And my heart started going, oh, I'm just going to stop paying attention to that so I don't get myself in a tizzy before this. So
do you want to do that right now?
Not really.
I can show you how.
I want to be really present.
I love it. Well, if you want to take 10 seconds, we'll do that, and then come right back to me, and I'll look at you right eye to eye.
It just seems like it'll take a while. They can watch it afterwards.
Okay, you
Thank
bet.
you, Tom.
I'll have it archived.
I really kept my work life and my spiritual practitioner life publicly separate.
Okay.
I didn't really talk about one at the other place or one at the other place.
Sure. Conflict of interest, or you were just trying to be conscientious about both?
A little bit of resistance, actually, on my own. Partly is I have really strong boundaries of when I'm at work, and when I'm not, I'm not. Right. I'm really good at unplugging. Okay. And so I'm also pretty good at unplugging the other way as well. No, I never unplugged from the spiritual side. I don't know what that meant. I saw a flash. I don't
I,
know what that was. Do we have
yeah,
lightning here maybe?
I think there may have been a universal sort of, whatever. That could have actually been, I don't know, but it may have been Tyson, like Mr. deGrasse, Neil Tyson deGrasse, jumping in saying, "Hey,
Hey.
Kathryn, yeah, I wish I could say, hey, he's right here, jumping on the conversation, but we'll get to Neil. Let's continue on here for a second about your,
Oh, okay. Oh,
yeah,
just really quickly. So,
yeah,
because something unexpected. I know that people, myself included, of course, have had, and yourself, right? You had all these tours scheduled for the flock of seagulls. I had all these things I was going to do down in California, and now things are on pause. Yeah,
right,
and it's okay. It's an acceptance. It's this continuous acceptance of what is rather than resisting. Yeah,
right, right,
and so it's like when SpaceX first didn't get off the ground, literally the
right.
first time around, I thought about it for a few days, and then I thought, well, of course it didn't. Right now, there's a pause for almost everything that we've been trying to launch. Yeah, so
Right.
there's a pause, and then it was successful. Hooray, SpaceX!
Hooray.
So one day, finally, I had actually been talking about the practitioners about my daily work because we've been meeting, and one day I created a thing on Facebook, a meme, and it said, "A calm mind is emergency preparedness."
Mm.
2 days later, I got an invitation to be interviewed by the Science of Mind magazine, which is an international publication for the spiritual community.
Wow.
And so it's like I accepted what is. I allowed them both to infuse each other and trust that I am exactly where I'm supposed to be. And I would really encourage, Kevin coached me, if I want to really give a message, I encourage all of you to trust that you are exactly where you're supposed to be right now.
Very wise. I would imagine how difficult that is for some people to see, you know, if their life seems out of control, it would be very difficult to say, well, this is not where I'm supposed to be. To be able to trust that is something that I work on daily. It really is an important thing. You mentioned that as musicians, and people ask me all the time, when are you going to be out again? When, we have tickets for these shows. We saw that this is on your calendar. And my own bandmates, right? We have conversations about it. And the healthy thing for me to be able to keep centered is to say, I hope for the best. I plan for the worst. I would way rather be on stage than anything at all, but I don't want to do it if it's going to put somebody else at risk. And
Right.
so I'm hopeful that whoever books the shows, whoever, is involved in bringing bands together with, people at shows, that their best interest is in mind, not just a paycheck, right? And so right now, sports organizations are trying to find ways that they can get away with performing for people, having these entertainment forms, and pack as many people into a place as they can without presenting them danger, right? And I'm conflicted about it because selfishly, uh,
Mm.
I love football. I'm excited to go see my team. I love being on stage more than anything. I love connecting with people at shows more than anything on the planet. This is as close as I get with my close people, right? Is this conversation right now. And it's been healthy for me. It was an accident. And it's something that I can have as a daily ritual to be able to come and get centered and connect with people that matter to me. And every single day I'm inspired. I walk away from these conversations with a little bit of a better understanding about somebody else, how they're dealing and coping and being and working on their traditions to be healthy, knowing that where I'm at right now is exactly where I'm supposed to be. Knowing that came from trust and practice and faith and belief. A lot of practice, years of trying to convince myself that this is truly where I need to be. And I believe it now, but it took me a long time to get here. And so when you say trust in that you are where you need to be. Somebody could tell you that every day forever and have it not really mean anything until you put it in practice. And
Mhm.
so I am so grateful to hear you say that, because it is a really healthy thing. It almost gives you a pass, because then you have to stop stressing about what's not there, right?
Yes. And then you allow something to emerge that you couldn't have ever come up with on your own. I could never have thought that merging the two, because they wanted to interview me, my practitioner work, how has that influenced my daily work, right? And how does it
Sure.
help me through all that? I could never have thought maybe that is a way that I can touch people through
Yeah.
that. And you, because you're so gregarious and loving and outgoing, and you thrive on connection, that you're like, okay, if I can't do that, I'm going to do this. And who knows what this is opening for you
Sure.
and for other people. And so that's just another element of that trust, and allowing for whatever it is to unfold in its perfection, and letting go of control of
Mm.
having to know or thinking we have any control over it, and giving it to the universe, because there are infinite possibilities in the universe that I could not ever come up with. You could not ever come up with. But I love to think about that all the time. And
Yeah.
that's why I love looking to the stars.
I love that you brought me to that, because this is a huge part of Kathryn and Richard's life, right? If we want to talk about the astral side of things,
Mm,
you've got your telescope right there.
I
I'm pointing the wrong
do.
side. And one of the things I really loved about getting to know you was your connection with everything thousands of feet up and beyond. Okay, so tell me about that evolution. Is this something you've always been fascinated with and you connect with?
I have always, always, always been a lover of nature,
Okay.
and always. And then a few years ago, maybe 5 years ago, my next door neighbor, 2 doors down, my timeshare cat neighbor, my dear friend, she turned me on to the Neil deGrasse Tyson Cosmos series,
Hmm.
which he was kind of a revamp of Carl Sagan, who was his teacher. And it opened up a whole new way of being and living and seeing for me that was so exciting, and such a informer of my spirituality, because to me the cosmic perspective is a spiritual perspective. If you think of most of spiritual traditions, their goal is the understanding that everything is connected,
Hmm.
that it is you, that there is only one thing, it's there's it's all one, it's one thing, it's all connected. And that is a cosmic perspective, because when you think that, and what I learned through this whole series, and then when I continue to learn, and then I buy my telescope, this was from not spending money eating out, thank you, over the last couple of months, is that everything in existence existed in an infinitesimally smaller than the tiny prick of a pen sized something, that it was an impulse for the expansion. And everything that we see is a result of that. And so you are like 14 billion years in the making as you. And the same atoms of your body were present at that, in that tiny speck almost 14 billion years ago, right? And it's so life that turns into different things, and gravity pulls things together, and supernova explosions spill chemical guts around that then have the composition to make planets and stars and people and birds and black holes and you and me.
Yeah.
And that's what we all are. And we are of that infinite intelligence, that same inspiration. That's why I love so much the creative arts and artists and performers, is they have an intuitive sense of that, and can often put that into words and poetry and music that touches us in a way that sometimes we can't access on our own, right?
Sure. Or explain.
Or explain.
Right.
Right?
You
And
bet.
so I love that. And I love looking out, and especially the Orion Nebula. You know, it's 1,600 light years away. That's that fuzzy patch in the belt of Orion
Right.
sword. They call it the sword. It's actually a galactic emission place because stars are being born in there. And I love looking at that. And and it means that everything matters. And in the context of the grand scheme of the cosmos is part of it. And in some way, it softens what's happening now.
Mm.
It just softens it. It softens the edges. It dims it. When I look out there, it's a good way to soften,
Yeah.
a good perspective. And it feeds me so deeply. I'm so grateful for that. So grateful.
That that softening seems so distant if you were to turn on the TV, or if you were to delve too deeply, into the arguments that are happening on social media. And it's not to discredit what's happening, because there's a lot that needs to change for sure. But the softening and the connectivity, the thought of this grand scheme of things, you mentioned the grand scheme, right? When I think about raising my kids and I look at things that really just drive them crazy, right? They spin from some sort of anxiety. And I, looking at their situation, having a few more years and speed bumps that I've hit, I can look at that in the grand scheme of things and think,
Mm.
wow, you know what? Your issue is really, in the grand scheme of things, not that big a deal, right? Is it going to harm you if it doesn't work out one way? Is it going to harm anyone if it doesn't work out that way? And there is a pass that you get, right, from that perspective, because you can see that in the grand scheme of things, a lot of what people are using as a crutch or using to keep resentments is really unhealthy. It doesn't help anything in the grand scheme of things. It's destructive, right? And so I love the idea of the softening. If you can change perspective and you can use this cosmic experience, this cosmic appreciation, to see what really matters. I talked about the conversation I had with my friend the other day when he's so funny. And just before we got on our chat here, he switched the news on and he had it off camera and he was watching the riots, the looting, and he was making jokes and comments about the looting. He's funny, and in a really politically incorrect way. If I wasn't so driven nuts by it, I would have laughed along with him. But what I did say was, please change the channel, to look at the Tesla and NASA. First of all, the partnership, right? That those two organizations came together, and the first commercial spacecraft that got to the space station and transferred astronauts through, was such a magical thing last Tuesday. I was
Yeah.
on a high that day, because it was the greatest news that was out, and it was a historic event, right? It was something that just hadn't been done before. And I love that that priority was made, right, from these organizations to partner together, and this working together, a universal working together of nations, that they weren't looking at colors of skin or, basis of religion, but really looked at the greater good, and trying to get out there and appreciate this conservation of space. And so I looked at those. I'm sorry, you were going to say something.
I want you to finish, and then
Okay.
yeah.
Well, I just, um, my natural tendency is, when I turn on the news, I can feel my temperature rise. I can feel my anxiety rise, which is why I stopped watching the news the last couple of years. The news that I need to get will get to me. In some ways, that seems like an ostrich putting its head in the sand, right? But I felt like I needed to close things, like bring my circle in a little bit, right?
Mhm.
If I was, because I have control issues, I'm a control freak by nature, and I want to control what's going on in my universe, right? And I realized that in the grand scheme of things, there is no way for me to control any of those things.
Mm.
I only can control my own actions, right? I can control, my beliefs. And even then it's a challenge, right? So it's important for me to look at something like that and realize how insignificant so much of what I have going on is. And it helps me get perspective, right? So that I can actually realign myself. So, and I also talk too much. Sorry. So I'm talking over you. I apologize.
Not at all. That is beautiful. And I really appreciate what you've just said. And a couple of things to highlight is that you brought up change the channel.
Yeah.
That's part of the whole mind makeovers and my devotion with people in the spiritual practice is sometimes you need to be aware of what you are putting out there and attracting to yourself.
Sure.
And it is a frequency. Everything is energy, including thoughts. And so if you're not in the groove, you got to change your channel,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. That sort of minimizes a lot of what you talked about with your mind makeovers concept. But will you talk a little bit more about that? This is a really, really important thing, I think, to convey to people, because I set our conversation up where I talked a little bit, right, about are you struggling with a sense of isolation? Do you fear disclosing vulnerability? Like vulnerability, accountability are some things that I talk about a lot in conversations with people, because as a man, typically being vulnerable is it's a very rare thing to open up and say, I'm weak, I'm vulnerable, I'm not perfect, I have control issues. All these things are struggles that people have. And I love that, you really can help people feel understood and heard. And so I want to know how mind makeovers came about. I love the concept. I love the idea, or the name you came up with. So tell me about that evolution.
Well, the evolution actually, so for those of you who don't know, Kevin and I actually met through a mutual friend who recommended that he design my website when I first became a practitioner and went into the business for myself. And I named it first TriFit Evolution, Spiritual Evolution. And that was because I named it after the Trifid Nebula, of course, which is a star-making factory that's in the shape of a heart. It's very beautiful. And over the years, people were just like, how do you spell that? What is it? And now people really are like, they need to see something that clicks with them or they move on. And so right before the Grammy Awards, the night before I learned I was going to witness those, I was with my family in Montana. And I just got in the news that I was going. I'm like, oh my God, I'm going. And I'm thinking about redoing my website, but I'm not sure what to call it. So I sat down with them and I told them what I do, which is really to work with people on identifying where it is in their lives they are not experiencing what they would like to experience. And then getting down to what are their beliefs, what are some of their core beliefs that may be preventing them from realizing those, and then providing tools to help, which are things like what I mentioned about the Outloud Affirmations, which you can learn to do on your own. I do them on the closing of every session, but also flipping a pancake, right? If you start watching your thoughts and getting a little stinky, right? Like a pancake burning, it's getting negative. So you got to flip it to the positive when you can, right? Or at least take it off the griddle and keep it neutral, right?
Sure.
I also have what I call the RAD method, where you actually just mentioned, Kevin, it's about realigning. Whoa, right? I'm recognizing I'm off balance. You can do a reframing. Oh my gosh, I'm making up a story. What's really the truth here?
Yeah.
And then you align and then you direct your thoughts that direction. So the mind makeovers came from that session with my family where I'm telling them all this, and we were brainstorming and came up with all sorts of fun things. And then it might have been my nephew that just burst out, richer within, because that's what it's about. It's in here. We know our truth.
Yeah.
We know we have our own intuition. We know we have that inner navigator. And so it's helping people navigate to their own truth and then figure out, how is your thinking impacting your life in a way that is either you can make it intentional, because we can create it, right?
Right.
Or you can unintentionally create it. So let's be intentional. And that often starts with really being observant of what we think
Mm.
and what we believe, because a belief is just something that we think over and over and over.
Right.
And so the Mind Makeovers is about hitting that refresh button. It's about, you are actually creating new neural pathways when you are changing your patterns of thinking, your beliefs. Most often what people really struggle with is a sense of that they're unworthy
Yeah.
and unlovable. And that's that you can redo that neural pathway, and you can do that through the affirmations. There's things that you can do. You know, we are only conscious of about 5% of our entire being. 95 is programming. Kind of scary to think about.
Sure.
And you can really do something about it. And that's with the mind change.
Um,
For good. Mind change for good. Mind
yeah.
makeover for
I mean,
good.
that's what makeovers are all about, right? I mean, you're um, putting in much better to be able to come out on the other end, a much better person, and manifest really good, positive things. My friend Janine just commented on here. Janine Self is somebody that came to me and gave me this gratitude journal this last year.
Mm.
And it changed my life. Honestly, it's a 3-minute ritual that started out, I thought, as an obligation in my day. And it turned into something that has been a makeover. It really is. It's a simple thing, but she, like you, is one of those people that has shown me um, the power of intuition, that connectivity. She's really connected to animals. That's her, I think, where her spiritual guidance is really driven from this connection that she has with animals. And I love seeing that. I've got a lot of friends that do animal rescue, and I see that compassion that those types of people have in my life, those connections that I have, these friends of mine, right, that are so connected to animals, because in so many ways animals can't help themselves, right? And so in certain communities, I know when I was in Thailand, there are people that go out and do a lot of dog and cat rescues because these animals in the street they're struggling, and there's a lot of compassion for those animals where you might not see that in our societies and locally. um, but right now, with kind of what's going on, there's a lot of unrest, there's a lot of disconnect and chaos, and so I think finding something to connect with, if you're connected to animals and feel like that is something that's a spiritual connection for you, I love the idea that they can be so involved in that they can get passionate about it, they feel this connection with you. You're teaching people to kind of connect with themselves that way. You discover those things about themselves. You talked about the intuition, recognizing that your thinking is gone awry, and that certainly takes practice, right? Because I know, it's there are a lot of times when I will realize that if I haven't had sleep, if I'm stressed out, I'm different with my kids. I'm
Mm.
kind of an asshole to them, and I have to catch myself. And I'm grateful to have the opportunity that if they don't say something back to me, but I can see that their body language changes when I come in the room, it's because I've put that out there, that energy, and I can recognize it now after some practice. I still have a lot of work to do, but that kind of recognition comes from work like with you. So when you sit down with somebody for the first time, when they come to you and they say, my thinking has gotten me where I am, I'm really limited, my whole aspiration has been, I want to be a theater performer, I want this more than anything, but I'm shy, I have a hard time going out and um, pounding the pavement, or I have a hard time making connections in that industry. Can you help me overcome this kind of thing? I'm just throwing this out there, but I'm wondering, because you work a lot with performing artists, this is something that you connect with well.
Mm.
So when they sit down with you, can you kind of give me an idea of the process that you go through with them to discover where their limitations are in their own thinking?
Hmm. It's a lot of listening. It's a lot of asking questions, getting a little bit deeper, trying to stay out of the details.
Okay.
I can give you an example because everyone is different.
Sure.
And eventually the goal is to have them come up with the answer for themselves.
Mm-hmm.
I can certainly give observations. Um, and at the same time, it's really most important for them to come to it on their own. So uh, what stuck in my mind when you said that was shy. Okay, let's talk about the shy.
Okay.
Do you have a sense of what's the feeling when you feel that shy? And do you have a sense of, is there somewhere back in there where maybe someone told you that what you were doing was silly,
Mm.
right? And so it's like peeling back the layers really gently, peeling back. Let's say we're softening.
Yeah.
So that that unfoldment of what is at the core of that can present itself.
Okay.
I'll give an example. I had a gal who loved performing in bands and was petrified of standing up and singing by herself.
Sure.
And in one session, we came to an understanding of basically it was an inner child. There was a criticism in there. And so she learned to comfort that, put her next to her in the seat before she went on stage. And she went up right that night and did a rockin' performance all by herself.
Wow. And that was so it was a disconnect from the painful part of her childhood. So she was able to sort of identify because of the work that first session and say, you said she put her in the seat next to her. So she could disconnect from that pain and do the performance that she wanted. So what happens to the child that's sitting next to her, right? What happens to the painful part? How do you discard that? You just drop that kid off at the park, right? What do you, okay. And I'm just asking for, I mean, obviously we're speaking sort of metaphorically, but I'm thinking as work happened with that particular person, were you able to help her then? I guess like you can never really permanently disconnect, right? But,
Yeah, and it's not actually a disconnect.
okay.
It's an embracing
Okay.
and an acknowledgement that child didn't get something. And we can give that to them now.
Mm,
That's the beautiful thing. But they're no longer in the driver's seat.
mm, okay.
Right? It's actually the child whose feelings aren't acknowledged turns into the rebellious teenager who does everything to stuff them down.
Okay.
Did plenty of that myself.
Yeah.
And then the adult is the one that understands the value of the feelings, acknowledges them instead of stuffing them. And then you're in the adult chair. That's a Michelle Chalfant, who's a really great teacher as well.
Okay.
So it's really an acknowledgement. And that's the beauty of this work, is that you don't have to spend five years going back through every single moment of everything that you've been through in your life. You can, and I value therapy very much. I've been through plenty of it myself.
Sure.
And this particular form, you can really, I've experienced really being able to get for myself with my own practitioner and with people that I have the joy of working with. You can really get there. You can really get there pretty quick.
I think part of that is your ability to make people feel comfortable, to be vulnerable and find those things quickly. I think, I've certainly done my share of therapy, and sometimes it's just not the right click, right? You just don't connect with somebody that way. But you've got the ability to just make people feel like they're not being analyzed. They're not being studied. This is not a psychological session, but more of, you're welcome to find these things in yourself. And I picture, because you and I have had fun conversations about your, sort of spiritual connection with Neil deGrasse Tyson, right?
Yeah.
You've gotten to meet him a couple of times now.
I have. He's my boyfriend. He just doesn't know it.
Right. Yeah. So I was trying to be, polite by saying that, because I think he's still married, right? So,
Yes. A gal from Montana, by the way.
oh yeah. Well, he knows how to pick them. But I think if he was sitting across from you right now, and I'm just picturing the conversation, what would happen. I know that once you got talking about the cosmos, then you could dig in a little deeply with Neil and say, maybe discover some of the things that were limiting him, because there were some controversial things that happened the last couple of years with him, right?
There were.
There's always whenever you're in a position of sort of celebrity, if you will, stuff is just going to come up, right? So I would imagine that the controversy that came up would allow for a conversation between you and him to happen in a real heartfelt way. I'd love for him to be able to have a mind makeover with you. I bet you would like it too.
I'm available.
Yeah. Tell me a little bit about how you connected. Because you talked about watching the series
Mm-hmm.
that fascinated you, but what is it about him specifically that you really resonate well with?
He is so passionate about what he does. He lives it. He breathes it. He teaches it. It is every fiber of his being down to his tie.
Okay.
And I admire that greatly. I admire his wit, his intelligence, and so when I heard he was coming to town, my friend and I, Elaine, we got the cosmic package, which meant we got to sit a few rows from the front, and then we actually got to meet him and had a book sign and got the pictures and talked with him a little bit. And of course, we're asking him, well, what do you think the origins of consciousness? How did consciousness arise, and how is it connected to the universe? And then his publicist dragged us away, and we had to give other people time. I'm like, sorry, I didn't mean to take up all the time here, but it was so fun.
Yeah, in a 30-second conversation, how does he explain where consciousness came from? That's what I want to know.
He actually said we still haven't figured that one out.
He said that.
He did, yeah. But then he told us, he went off on some stories about twins and how if they do or don't share consciousness. He's good friends with Sam Harris, who I also really value his perspective as well. He's a neuroscientist and a meditating Jewish mindfulness about spirituality without religion and being awake very well. So, and then the second time I met him, I simply asked him, so what's love all about, as Tina Turner would say.
Mm-hmm.
And I might have stumped him on that one.
Yeah. He hasn't figured that one out either.
Right.
Yeah. This is his canned answer for everybody. I wonder what, I just trying to picture his reaction, because for him to answer that, you can't answer that in a 10-second response, but you also don't want to answer incorrectly or put somebody, because it's such an objective perspective thing. I mean, you like his perspective on what love's all about is obviously different than what yours might be or anyone else. So if he were to answer, he doesn't want to really give the wrong type of answer and make it seem like it's, it's a definition of what love is all about. You were wanting to know his perspective. What do you think of? Yeah.
I think maybe if I had to put it in a cosmic perspective, and if I were to make a wild guess, he might say something that he did actually say, which was, when I look into the cosmos, there is no greater spiritual feeling than that. Mm. And so perhaps that's the same feeling of love. Yeah. And I can feel that when I look into the cosmos sometimes. And when I really look, when I really look and really think, whoa, that patch out there is 1,600 light years away, and there's 6 trillion miles in 1 light year, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, out to the immeasurable heavens and Lanaikea and all of this. It's like, when I really chew on that, I can feel it.
Wow, my son Caleb actually was so fascinated with the broad expanse of space early on. That was his first sort of love, his interest. And I remember him just going down this rabbit hole of study and coming to me and saying, "Oh my gosh, Dad, Did you know? And I remember the innocence, right? Nothing had been polluted in his mind. He hadn't seen controversy yet, right? He hadn't even seen sort of the disconnect between space travel and what governments do, to defund those sorts of things, And so for him, it was about that innocence and the majestic part of space. And so I love that. And it sounds to me like you're still connected to that in a really innocent way, which is beautiful. Um, you know, I also notice when I talk to you that I kind of, I ramble, because you get my mind thinking about so much that I can't be present because I'm kind of thinking, wow, if that is the case, then what about this? And so it's tough for me to really tie this up into, sort of where you evolved your practice, your spiritual practice. You mentioned this change from triad spiritual evolution to richer within. It's obviously also a play in your name, your last name, Richer, but and richer within, a closeness of the heart is what you've um, really helped people get connected with. It's a really important and healing thing. I think that so many people are disconnected in a lot of ways, so I would think that um, your phone should be ringing off the phone, off the hook right now, but when people have, how have people sort of found you this way? Are you, because like I mentioned, you work with a lot of creative professionals and I think a lot of athletes as well, right? That was a focus. And I think I know you went to the Super Bowl, right? And
Yes.
there were some connections that you had to potentially meet with, like the world's athletes on a global stage. Is that because these people are so passionate about what they do, they're so focused and intensely driven to be the best of the best? Or am I
Yes, and also, Kev, because they have a worldwide platform. And when they are not in their roles, whether it's in their high performing role, whatever that may be, and they are in interviews as who they are, daily life,
mm-hmm.
they can impact a lot of people's lives by what they say.
Sure.
Because they really are our modern day gods and goddesses, yeah?
Right.
People elevate them to that status. I mean, we
Sure.
are all stars. We are all stars wrapped in skin. However, and there are those people, and so the higher their consciousness is, and their consciousness awareness of themselves and the world around them, they can elevate others' consciousness and
Mm.
inspire other people to think greater and bigger. I mean, when you think of some of the speeches that people have made when they're accepting Grammy
Right.
Awards, Emmy Awards, Oscars, things like this, the people that are very courageous
Mm-hmm.
in stepping out and taking a stand in a way that is very constructive and helpful.
Sure.
Think of all the people that are listening and absorbing that.
Sure.
That's my interest in having the opportunity to work with people who are really interested in that deepening and in that deepening awareness and conscious living.
Have you had an opportunity with somebody at that level that you really feel like, I'm trying to think of examples. You mentioned Grammy acceptance and, um, people that have received whatever, a Super Bowl ring, and you do hear about sports figures right now. Lebron James is huge in this controversial sort of thing because, um, the media have told him, you're just an athlete, shut up and dribble. That was a real controversial statement that he took to heart. And actually and like I said, I hadn't watched the news, so I get these little bits and pieces. And so I don't want to misquote something, but I do remember that what I saw from his response was constructive and healthy, saying that he's in the position he's in to do more than be baited into controversy and into an argument for media's clickbait sake, right? And
Yeah.
and so there are a few athletes that I can think of that even right now, to Drew Brees, a quarterback from the Saints. who's been, he'll be a Hall of Famer and he's a real big name in the NFL world. He's suddenly got into this space where he's having Twitter wars with our current president. And it's interesting at that scale, or at that level, where they can impact not just a response, or elicit a response from, say, a global leader, but also everybody else that watches. Is there anybody that you've worked with that has been able to sort of articulate that consciousness at a global level? Or if there's not, who would you want to? Is there somebody that you would connect with, if you could select someone besides Neil deGrasse Tyson?
That's a great question. And to answer your question, not yet. I would say I am well on the way.
Okay.
And if there's someone in particular I would love to, the way that I believe the universe operates and that I cooperate with it is that I figure out, it's for me to decide the what, from the interior place, from the richer within, from that says, this is what you are here to do. Now, it can change over time, right?
Sure.
And then it's up to the universe to figure out the how. So the people are in the how. And I'm going to leave that up.
Okay.
I'm going to leave that up to, here's an example. As a musician, you know that if you're in a room and you strum a G string on a guitar, and there's another guitar across the room that is tuned to that exact same frequency, it will start vibrating on its own without being plucked.
Right.
That's the attraction.
Beautiful. I love that connection. Yeah. No.
So I trust that. I trust that someone feels that. It's more important to me that someone feels that and comes to me than me try and reach out and grab.
Sure.
Does that make sense?
It does make that. It makes sense. When I brought that question, I thought of my own self. When I started doing these conversations, they've all been people that are close to me. They're people that matter, that have really impacted me. And some people have come out of the woodwork to ask to do the show. And it's been uncomfortable a little bit because, it's not as sincere and authentic, I think, unless I really know something about them or feel connected. And yet there are some people that I think, you know what? Someday I would love to sit down and have a conversation with this person. There are a couple of people like that. And I feel like just because of who I think I know, what I think I know about that type of person, I think I really feel like there'd be a connection there, but it may be that it just doesn't happen, right? Because you can speculate all day long, but just like other musicians that you may have met that were maybe heroes when you were younger, sometimes either it's a bad day or maybe you just don't have the connection you thought you might. And so being able to be comfortable with just what is and what will be, I think is really important. I pictured you seeing maybe an acceptance speech somewhere and thinking that could have been so much more impactful had they articulated this, and so that's kind of what I was getting to, was thinking, oh man, they just missed the mark, right? They just, you could have, I see this all the time, and maybe I'm critical of it when I do see, people in the media, and they'll say, oh my gosh, you could have righted the ship so much if you had just not been inflammatory, or you may have just said this, and maybe that's my control freak issue, right? But me thinking that what my idea was more, appropriate. But
well, I understand what you're saying. It's also like, it's the blessing and the curse of being a trained musician, because we could go to a concert, like particularly classical or Baroque concerts, and if I hear something that's out of tune, it's like, so it's like, you understand that and you hear that.
Yeah.
And I hear what you're saying. I think what I'll do is I will think about that.
Okay.
And I'll get back to you on what comes to me. I have a lot of dreams. My dream life is really profoundly large. And I have dreamed of rock stars, and I've dreamed of Neil, and I dream of high school friends, and I dream of people in my current life and people I've never met. Maybe someone will pop up to me in a dream and say, hey, give
Yeah.
my person a call.
Do you write those dreams down?
I have years of dream journals.
Really?
Oh yeah.
Do
It's
you ever go
amazing
back?
to look back. Oh
You
yeah.
do go back. Okay. Yeah. Have you noticed an evolution in what you remember about your dreams over time?
Not so much about what I remember, but how maybe the indicators within them have changed,
Okay.
or the tone of them have changed, or some of them actually predicted things that happened.
Wow.
Um, yeah,
Uh,
it's quite something.
to me, it seems like you could almost train yourself to notice details about your dreams more. When you write those things down, because if you were to ask me what dream I had a week ago, it's gone, right? It's out of my short-term memory. But if I were to sit, wake up and the first thing I did was to journal and talk about the, how profound that dream was, or just details about it,
Yeah.
it'd be interesting to see how elaborate your dream journal was from yesterday versus 10 years ago, if you could remember more because you've sort of subconsciously trained your mind to study more in the dream. Yeah, that's a fascinating thing for me. But
It's another first thing in the morning.
yeah,
Yeah. For me, of writing down the dreams, if they seem like really like, well, I'm gonna pay real good attention to
yeah,
that one. Yeah. And then that's at the time in the morning, because it'll be gone. Even
yeah,
when I hit the cup of coffee, it's
sure.
most likely gone, or details are gone. So yeah.
Do you talk to people in your spiritual practice about their dreams?
That hasn't come up yet.
Okay.
Yeah.
I just wondered how in touch people are with the experiences they've had, either with dreams or not. But whenever I have a dream, the first thing I do is to analyze it. I wonder, what was the subtext? What was that? Why am I thinking about all these control issues I have, right? If I can't fix the homeless problem in the world, what's really going on in my mind, right? Some sort of, it's oftentimes something that's just out of my control, right? And I've got, life has somehow gone off the rails, and I wake up realizing that if it was a bad dream, okay, so my mind is rehashing that in my brain while I'm sleeping, right? And I realized that I went to bed thinking about finances or, you know, coronavirus or whatever, So it's to me, it's really interesting, because it helps me sort of let go of a lot of that control again, and just say, okay, I don't want to be haunted by my dreams. I'd rather, go to bed with a little bit more positive outlook. But
You can do that. You can also take them into meditation. You can ask your questions, dreams, in meditation.
so,
That's a whole nother subject.
well, you want to touch on that just briefly? I would like to know how you do that.
If I have a dream that is quite confounding to me, or disturbing, I will sit into meditation, enter into a silent space, and I will ask it questions. What did it mean to see this? What was the message behind this? And listen, right? That's mindfulness awake, or in meditation, is asking and then being willing to listen, and not stop what's coming up.
Sure.
So
Yeah,
just a
mindfulness.
little tool you might play with, Kev.
You've mentioned mindfulness a few times, and it's something that is another practice that I'm trying to work on. It's the ability to be able to let go of a lot of stuff out of your control really gets handled through mindfulness, and it's a healthy thing.
I have a thing I want to share with you really quickly about mindfulness.
Sure.
I was thinking how it's a bit of an oxymoron, because we don't want a full mind.
Right. We want to release.
And so our good friend, Kathryn, wrote her book about the River of Wakefulness.
Okay.
And I like that take on it, because rather than having a full mind all the time where you really can't hear intuition, we need so much silence. And that's why I think it's very important for people to disconnect, turn off the phone for however long you can handle it every day.
Yeah.
No music, no nothing. Many are not, well, we're getting a lot better at being with ourselves, so kind of we have to.
Yeah.
However, Wakefulness, it's being awake to what is, being awake to my thoughts, being awake to how you're responding, being awake to it's raining, being awake to the bird building, the nest outside that actually literally flew away for the first time yesterday.
Ah,
Wakefulness, which I'm really liking. I like mindfulness, that's a great,
sure.
great as well. I was just thinking, I don't want my mind to be full.
Sure.
I want to be awake. I want to
Yeah.
be awake. And that's where the vibrancy comes from, is really being awake, being alive.
Yeah.
It's
I love
exciting. It's fun.
that does bring a positive element to this whole somber sense right now, for sure. Because that again, it's perspective, right? And it really is about doing that mind makeover, allowing yourself a perspective change to be able to look at what value being present really has, in your day. I love that. I think I got all sorts of things to practice, but I'm excited about this because I feel like, again, it's one of those times that you and I sit down together and I walk away inspired. Yeah. With your practice right now, um, are you at a point that you've got sort of regular patients? Like, I don't want to call them patients, I guess. How do you refer to people you've worked with in your practice?
People.
People. All right. So yeah. So are you noticing, sorry, bumpy microphone. Are you noticing that people are having a hard time coping right now because of the sort of the world being off its alignment a little bit?
I actually have been working so much
Okay.
in the response that I have had very little time to do individual work.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
That's, I would imagine that there's something healing about you working with people in individual work as well. So maybe that's a realignment that once you've got some time, you're working at home right now.
Mm-hmm.
I'm hopeful that you get more time with people too, because it's
Thank
important for
you.
them. Yeah, but it's important to them, but it's important for you to have that.
It
Yeah.
is. It's
I
the thing I love the most
yeah,
ever.
I believe that's what you're here to. That's what you're here to do. This is your gift, and um, you're a gift to me for sure. You're a gift to others. I can't wait to just sit down across from you again, give you a hug, and um, have an opportunity to kind of talk about wakefulness, and how it has evolved from the last time that we talked. So,
Mm-hmm. I
yeah,
look forward to that too. You're the rock star of my heart, and you
yeah,
always have been, and you always will be.
thank
They're
you.
kindred spirit, and you're precious to me, Kev.
Yeah, man, I would hope that that we get to connect sooner than later. I know that people can find you if they wanted to talk about the individual sort of consultation, discover a little bit more about connectivity, and get some guidance from my friend Kathryn here through richerwithin.com. Right?
Yes,
I
I love that.
Brenda McClellan says she's wakeful in Montana.
My mom.
Oh, that's beautiful. I love that.
Aw.
Hello, mom. And my friend Mike Klaus said that you are so interesting. So he thanks us both. But Mike is a dear friend, and I'm glad that he got to enjoy some Saturday afternoon with you. I'm excited for friends that haven't got to meet you yet to really get to know, what it is that you offer, because you're very special to me.
Well, thank you. I'm so honored that you invited me to be here, and it sounds like we're closing. And what I like to say, and I'll explain it first because I realize people don't. They're like, oh, what does that mean? I like to say namaskar, which acknowledges the star in me is the same as the star in you, and we're all from the same star, and we're all stars. And so I honor you.
Thank you for honoring me, and I'm honored to be with you and share this presence together.
Thank you.
Um, Thank you. Have a beautiful weekend, and thank you for helping me be wakeful.
Bless you. Namaskar.
Namaste. Take care.
Bye.